Okay, so before we begin here, I just wanted to once again apologize that I was not able to drop the original episode one for season three. Unfortunately, my system had a glitch. So with that, I am going to drop another episode here for you guys as well. The episode that you will hear will be part of our interview series with my very, very good friend Meredith Stone. I hope that you guys pay attention. She is very kind. She is also very informative about architecture and will be able to drop a few hints about home ownership. So I definitely want you guys to please pay attention. Um, and once again, I do apologize for the mishap here. I don't know what happened with the original episode one, but thankfully we recorded this episode way ahead of time. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thanks.
Yeah. Embrace the culture, blaze the doja. Grab your loved ones and bring them closer. Extra, extra, read the poster. The KKP is taking over. Sleeping on me, better smell the Folgers. I've been razor sharp since the Motorola. Off for O, like the cover Oprah. Popping bottles, feet all in the sofa. It's a celebration, though the times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge. But it's a celebration, times is hard. It's raining blessings, give it up to God. Chaotic culture, the greatest pod. With Ked the Pro, the one in charge.
We're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh, we're living in a chaotic culture. 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 Oh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. If you joined us for episode one, I greatly appreciate you. To all of our listeners and subscribers, I cannot thank you guys enough. Once again, please be sure that you subscribe either through anchor.fm or you can subscribe to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/chaotic culture pod, and join us on any of the four levels. Today is going to be a special day and a special interview. But first, let me go ahead and introduce myself for those who do not know or for joining us for the first time. This is your boy Ked the Pro, aka the Calculator Millennial, aka the Cutlass Diamond, aka don't be pushing on my buttons in my cutlass unless you cutting, aka Panda's favorite toxic adjacent king. Doing it live from the 7-5. The 843 is me, as always, in the middle of Hampton, Virginia, getting ready to be Newport News in just a moment. As always, man, just living day by day, going to work and coming to talk to y'all and doing all of the things that I enjoy as far as this podcast, and just making sure that our voice continues to be heard throughout the podcast area or whatever you want to call it. That being said, I do have someone that we are interviewing today. So this is part of our interview series. And I am 100% excited for this person. Just to give a background information, as far as the story goes, where do I start? It had to have been, it was once again my sophomore year and this person's freshman year at Hampton University. Now, I'd done an interview with Mariah on season two, and that we pretty much met at the same place. However, with this person, it was such I wouldn't say a random occurrence. It was one of those things where we were doing the modeling portion, and this is my first time being involved with the modeling portion. I was like, okay, well, last time I was just going to, I had all plans just to do the dance and whatnot and just be done with that. But they were like, no, we need you for modeling. So I come around, and here comes this person walking in the middle of the what was the aerobics room at the time. We were trying to use that as part of our ramp, quote unquote. And I was stunned. I was like, yo, who is that? I was literally like, yo, who is that? And someone was like, yeah, her name is Meredith. I'm like, oh, wow,
Oh my
wow.
God.
So naturally what ended up happening is we actually sat down next to each other, and then we just started talking, and we formed such a strong friendship for the last 11 years. Goodness, yeah,
Yeah.
10 or 11
It's
years.
been a
It's really
while.
it's
Oh my
been that
gosh.
long. But we'll talk a little bit more about our Hampton journey, but I definitely wanted to at least give an introduction to someone who I consider a really good friend of mine. Was a part of the architecture program at Hampton University and is doing extremely well. Hailing from Savannah, Georgia, Miss Meredith Stone. What's going on, Meredith?
Yay. Thank you for having me here. That was a great intro. And I've forgotten about Battle of the States, but that was such an epic time in my freshman history. And yes, I do remember us sitting next to each other day after day in that aerobics room, trying to get everything together so that we could go kill it with Battle of the States. And then we didn't win, but it's okay.
Hey,
Everybody
we
knows
got
that
second, and
the
that was
South
the first time we got
always has
second.
something to say. So,
Hey, look, because
okay.
the South had never placed before during that time,
Right?
except for maybe like the first time. So we were just like, we
And
were
I
trying
think
to
that
just get
somebody
placed.
ate like a bucket of chicken on stage or something like that. It
Uh,
was
yeah,
the rumor from the year
mm,
before.
that was my
I
freshman
can't.
year.
Yeah.
That was not a year I want to talk about, but because that one, I
Okay.
had fun doing it, but it was just a
You
bad,
have
it was a
fun
terrible
eating
show.
chicken? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
was not the one eating chicken though.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. I was about to say, I hope it was fun because everybody remembers it.
Yeah. That Battle of the States actually set off a chain reaction because the moment we had placed second, like 5 years in a row after that, the South just kept winning. So,
Yes.
mad props to them for doing that. Like we set the standard
Started it
with that
off.
show. Yes. So, go ahead and introduce yourself, Miss Stone, if you could.
Sure. As you said, my name is Meredith Stone. I live in Savannah, Georgia. I went to Hampton University and got my master's in architecture from Hampton. I graduated in 2015. Prior to that, I was doing work study on Hampton University's campus at the radio station. I helped them make sure that they could stay accredited with the FCC and documented the different shows that we had playing on the radio station at the time. And I also did property management for about 2 years, and that helped fund me through my times at Hampton, and also got me really interested in real estate and helping people find where they want to live or places that they want to rent or anything of the sort. So I made a promise to myself that wherever I landed when I graduated from college, I would get my real estate license wherever I went, as well as a job in architecture, because that was what my degree was in. And I came back home and ended up working at a firm that I still work in called Gunmeyer Hofshay Architects. It's an excellent firm. It's one of the top firms for urban design and architecture in the city of Savannah. Most of our work is in this general region, whether it's in Brunswick, or we've even done we're working on something in partnership with another architecture firm in Fort Valley right now for Fort Valley State University. But for the most part, everything that we do is locally in Savannah. So I do that, as well as I am a real estate agent with Van Tosh Realty here in Savannah. And that is also one of the top commercial and residential brokerages in Savannah. It's a very small boutique real estate company, but they are very good at going into areas and that are underdeveloped and turning them into desirable places and kind of putting all the pieces together for commercial and residential real estate to really flourish. So I work there with them on my nights and weekends and during my 9 to 6 shift, I work at Gunmeyer Hofshay Architects. And I've since working there, I've done some really cool projects. I managed the construction of a cultural arts center. At the same time, I was managing the construction of an 8-story boutique hotel on River Street. And that also incorporated 2 sections of improvements in partnership with the city of Savannah to improve their right-of-ways and make a connection from Savannah City Market down to River Street. And there wasn't a pedestrian connection that was handicap accessible that existed before then, with the exception of one, which is at City Hall, but River Street is long. And so we made it so that now there are 2 handicap accessible places. And we're actually working on a 3rd one that's going on the east end of River Street currently as a firm. So I've worked on those types of projects. I've also worked on funeral homes. I've worked on a gas station in the historic district. A lot of our work is in the historic district. I'm working on a mixed use apartment over a pizza bistro. I'm also working on a hotel right now, which is really, really cool. It's located in one of the original 6 squares that Savannah was founded on. So Savannah was founded by James Oglethorpe. And this hotel is in the last trust lot remaining that's not been developed. And it's also located in Oglethorpe Square. So that's pretty cool and prestigious. And it's a really nice and beautiful hotel. So I'm working on designing that currently. And that's kind of a hodgepodge of different things that I work on currently and kind of what I do right now. I'm also in Toastmasters International. I'm Vice President of Public Relations for Toastmasters International, host the city chapter. So every Tuesday from 6:15 to 7:30, I help coordinate speaking events with Toastmasters.
Wow. Okay. First and foremost, y'all have already know how I feel about Hampton women, especially successful Hampton women and Hampton women who stay busy. So first and foremost, round of applause, because Meredith has always been that one person that I've known that stayed involved in something that she was dedicated to. Like, you've heard the accolades for when she was in Hampton and even down to what she's doing now. Like, that is nothing short of amazing. And more props to her, because I know that her journey has not been an easy one, especially just all things considered. Before we even talk about like the architect, her being involved in architecture, the architect major itself is challenging.
Very difficult.
Yeah, and this is coming from someone who's part of the 5-year MBA program. Myself, it was just like, dang, just hearing some of the stuff that she was doing and how some of the architect majors pretty much are, sleep in Bemis.
I think every single person that's ever attended Hampton University and majored in architecture at some point has slept in that building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had pillows and blankets for myself just in case.
Yeah, hey, look, there have been multiple times where I would have friends in Bemis and they would literally, call me or hit me up and be like, yeah, I'm in Bemis tonight. And there were nights that I just went over to check them out. Just like, I want to see what y'all working on, or I want to come chop it up real quick while you're working. And it was so crazy just to see how many people were just there, just working at a late hour, especially. I'm just like, man, no wonder y'all don't have curfew. Like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
So with that, just another brief story. What was the year where we traveled down on Thanksgiving and whatnot, and we rode together? I cannot remember what year was that your sophomore or was that your junior year?
I thought that it would have been my freshman year, because if it weren't I
Well,
had my car. I had my car my sophomore year. So maybe it was my sophomore year because I was having car troubles my sophomore year.
oh,
So it
okay. I
might
was
have
gonna say
been
it couldn't be your
my
freshman year because I
sophomore
met you
year.
second semester of your freshman year. So
Right.
so yeah, it had to have been that same year then sophomore year because I at the
It
time
was either
I
the
had my car.
summer of freshman year or it was going into sophomore year because I started having some pretty serious car issues my sophomore
Mhm.
year and had to buy a new car.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of which, the car that we rode in is no longer here with us. Rest in peace to old Red. Yeah.
RIP.
Yeah, she held on for as long as she could. You know, I've had that car since my junior year in high school, and it lasted all the way until I turned 30. So it
Well, my deepest condolences, but I think that it gave its life
yeah, yeah,
and it had a long life.
it's 17 years for, the car was 17 years old and I had it for 13 of those 17 years. So yeah, it did what it had to do. It got the job
It
done.
did.
Just from that whole travel experience, of course, I remember going down, and what's crazy is that we could have met your parents in actually in Charleston, but for whatever reason we
Yeah.
decided to go to Columbia, and I don't know, and I can't
I
remember why
thought
that was.
it was because you were originally planning to go to Columbia
Mm,
and then I don't know. It just didn't make any sense. I thought that you were originally planning to go to Columbia and like you were still going to Columbia on that trip, but you had to stop in Charleston first. And so you went out of the way to go to Columbia and then we met you in Columbia or they met I don't know. It was
yeah,
very confusing. Or maybe
I
my parents were going to be I don't know.
yeah, I figured I cannot remember. I do remember meeting your parents in Columbia, and then it dawned on me, I'm like, why didn't we just meet in Charleston? Because that would have been a whole lot closer to Savannah. But I, for whatever reason, I don't remember that. I just remember that we had definitely good talks during that car ride, and then we got stuck in traffic as soon as we hit South Carolina. So
Yeah, we did.
that part I remember vividly. But um anyway, we definitely had some good times at Hampton from the times that we did get a chance to interact. Uh, it's always been a pleasure having her around. For those of y'all who don't know, I have this relationship with Meredith where I could maybe go for like a few months without ever having to talk to her, but every year on schedule, I'm either going to call her on her birthday or send her a text on her birthday. Like it never fails. Like I literally have a calendar that says
He
make sure.
always remembers. I'm just like it's not my birthday unless KJ has called me, and then I know my birthday is complete.
All right. Hey,
Absolutely.
hey, I appreciate that. But yes, I literally have that kind of relationship with her. Like we have been since we've met, I've considered her such a great friend and such a good confidant, especially like if I have something going on. And yes, as you know, with us being adults, that sometimes we're not going to be able to speak to each other every day. That is
Mhm.
adulting in a nutshell. But still, you can't really get rid of those bonds. From Battle of the States to traveling during Thanksgiving, and even to now, it seems that every year, we continue to solidify our friendships. So, with that, I definitely want to talk more about you, Miss Meredith. So, I did want to at least start because, I met you the second semester of your freshman year, obviously, but I wanted to ask, as far as when you became a Hamptonian, like what compelled you to go into architecture? Like, what was the thing that set you off saying, I'm going to be an architect?
I think it was a mixture of things, kind of the perfect storm. I had both of my parents were very involved in my life and in my education. They noticed that I like to draw things very technically and like to draw a lot of three-dimensional objects that morphed into things that look like spaces and places. So they recognized that early and introduced me to one of their good friends who just so happened to be one of the founding members of the current architecture firm that I work in. He is the late Eric Meyerhoff, but they introduced me to him and he told me that my work at the age of 9 at that point looked like the work of a college freshman, and that meant a lot to me at the time. And now that I'm a professional, it's like, ooh, maybe that wasn't so great. But it was really encouraging, and it made me want to continue to pursue it. And I thought maybe I wanted to do computer science, perhaps biology, but I just kind of stuck to saying architecture is what I wanted to do. And then I chose Hampton because Hampton was an HBCU, and it was also relatively close to within close distance to family. I wouldn't be too far away from family if something happened. And it just seemed like a very comfortable setup. And I didn't even realize at the time that I had a lot of family legacy. My grandmother, my grandfather, and my aunt also went to Hampton. My grandfather was class of, I believe, 1917 was when he graduated from Hampton Institute. So I think it was just kind of written in the cards. That's what got me interested in going to Hampton and in studying architecture.
Okay. Wow. I honestly didn't realize that you had that deep of a legacy at Hampton. Like, here I am, I'm talking about how my uncle went here. He was class of 87, if I'm not mistaken. And I've had a slew of cousins that I didn't know went to Hampton until after I graduated. It's like, why didn't anybody tell me that y'all went here? And why did y'all not hit me up to let me know what to expect and whatnot? But that being said, and I've got a baby cousin who's here now. I think this is his senior year, if I'm not mistaken. He's getting ready to graduate. So it's just crazy just to hear that from you, and how deep your legacy runs with Hampton, and of course how that compelled you to go into architecture, especially hearing that you've always been, drawing three-dimensional objects and always been technical at it. It sometimes it's the smallest things that will, project us to a journey that we never even imagined. With that, now I wanted to ask, because we're both from the South. Obviously, we both come from historical cities. I was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, and of course, you with Savannah. We know the history of both of these cities runs deep, especially for Black people, in some good ways and definitely some not some good ways. I'm stumbling over my words. That being said, I did want to ask, like, what made you decide to return to Savannah to begin your journey?
Well, I was actually adamantly opposed to coming back home when I came out of school. I was really not convinced that Savannah would be the best place for me to grow and mature as a young professional. In my experience in Savannah, a lot of times when young people get educated, they leave and they don't come back because there aren't as many opportunities for them for, I guess, especially people of color, for middle class to really grow and expand in Savannah. And there are a lot of limited industries that can support in Savannah. So I wasn't interested. All of my friends had left. They'd all moved to Atlanta and Texas and other places. So I applied to a lot of jobs. I heard a lot of rejections, and I was getting really defeated because I was reaching closer and closer to the date that I needed to start paying on my student loans. And I ran into Patrick Shea, who is the current principal of Gunmeyer Hofshay Architects. I ran into Patrick Shea's son at a happy hour, and he told me that his dad's firm could possibly be hiring. And so I submitted. He told me what day and time to come, and I showed up with my little elevator speech and my portfolio and introduced myself and explained that I wanted a job. And then I found out that his son never alerted anyone that I was coming. So I just showed up and just said, "Hey, I'm Meredith, and this is why you should hire me." And he was really impressed by that and said, "Bring her in for another interview." And so that's what kept me here. I started working with them at the beginning of 2016. I interviewed at the end of 2015. So it took me approximately 6 months after graduating to find a position. But it was it just kind of all worked out. And then I realized the magnitude of the opportunity that I had with this firm to generally and genuinely build back portions of Savannah. And I would be able to learn from one of the best architects in the area of how to make projects economically feasible and very thoughtful in design. So that's why I decided to come back. And it's been pretty cool staying here.
Okay, I hear you. Man, that 6 months after graduation story, that sounds familiar. Good God.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine what this most recent year's round of graduation looks like, graduating in the middle of the pandemic. And a lot of places put their design projects on hold because designing buildings and dreaming of new things when you're trying to take care of your current buildings that people can't pay for because they can't rent and they can't show up to work and everything else is very hard. So I'm glad that I was able to graduate when I did, but I just cannot imagine having to get out of school and find something in the middle of a pandemic, on top of maybe not having very much experience architecturally, because architecture, like most jobs, but with architecture, you have to have experience to work in architecture. So if you don't already have 1 or 2 internships under your belt from when you were in school, it can be really hard to land a job.
I hear that. My bad. A commercial went off on my phone for some reason. I don't know where that came
It's
from.
all good.
But yeah, I hear you there. It's we live in unprecedented times with this pandemic, and just seeing the round of graduates from 2020 and even up to now, it's just, for me, I don't want to say I feel bad, but I definitely am feeling for these kids out here, and just like, man, I hope they can continue to find success, despite everything going on. And it's just so crazy because, I don't want to say that I had to fight for my job, but I definitely made sure that, when it came to my job, that they had no excuse but to keep me on. But I really wanted to make sure that those who were coming in, that they have that, that space to grow within the company and whatnot, and to let them know, like, look, this is an unprecedented time, but we're gonna get you right. And so the only thing that I could do was do my part, because I'm not a school administrator, but I definitely am feeling for these kids even to this day. And I just hope that with everybody going back to school, that they can continue to practice safety protocols and continue to wear a mask and get vaccinated if you can. I know some people out there are, compromised, but still, do your part, and just remember that this isn't about, not only just about you, but it's about us. So I definitely want people to realize that. With that in mind, I am going to continue to ask a couple of questions here. Now, you talked about, a community center, I believe, that y'all were working on. So would you consider that like your best work right now, other than the hotel that you're working on?
That was definitely one of the best projects or most impactful projects that I've been able to have my hand in as far as getting built. The Cultural Arts Center is city owned. It was funded by SPLOST dollars. So they were taken from basically sales tax over the years, paid for this new facility for the Cultural Affairs Commission in Savannah. And it's state-of-the-art facility. It has a black box theater that is lined with sprungwood floors, and it's got a flexible theater that has telescopic seating, so it can be an event room or an event venue with several seats. You can watch movies, whatever. It has art studios. It has state-of-the-art sound systems. Just it's got a lot of really cool things. So that's been a really nice project to work on. This hotel that I'm working on has been one that I've had a significant hand in designing from the start. So I've been able to see that and present that through the different historic review board submissions that we're required to do. So in order to build within the Historic District of Savannah, you have to pass some pretty rigorous rules and get approved by a subjective body that votes on whether or not your building is visually compatible by comparison to its context. So that's been a pretty cool experience. I would say that at every new project, I mean, I've gotten to work with the library system on some projects. There's just been a lot of random stuff here and there that's been really cool. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So first and foremost, the Cultural Arts Center sounds like that's right up my alley. I definitely need to come check it out one of these days.
You should. I think they just kind of started opening things back up but I don't know how long that's going to happen with COVID going how it's going.
I'm definitely not in a rush. So, but I definitely, whenever things start to get better, health wise, and, then at that point, once things start to open back up, I would definitely do my best to come, one, check you out, but also check out the Cultural Arts Center. Because you definitely are too far from home. And I still, I have to make a better effort when I'm home and whatnot, or I'm home for like a long period of time, to at least, stop by, because Savannah ain't nothing but a hop, skip, and a jump. And sometimes it just doesn't register. I'm just like, why don't I just go to Georgia real quick? But,
it's a commitment, and we be busy. So it's totally, I get it.
Fair enough.
Still haven't really been to Charleston. So, and it's 2 hours away, and I'll make it eventually.
Yeah. I feel that. So if you could, I guess, just talk about, how the community has like benefited from the projects that you've worked on.
How has the community benefited from the projects that I've worked on?
Yes. Before COVID, obviously, or even during COVID, however you want to, scope your conversation.
I guess every project has its different impacts. I mean, if you look at the funeral home, Adams Funeral Home is a predominantly Black funeral home here in Savannah, and COVID happened within a year of us finishing their renovations and expansions. So that was great for them, because they went from having basically 2 rooms that they could operate out of to almost 6 rooms that they could operate out of. And they were able to, because of the way that we designed it, and they had an outdoor space and everything else, they were able to adapt to bringing peace in a time of great pain to a lot of families efficiently and safely because of the redesign. So that was something that was not suspected at all when I did that design, but it's something that came, I'm sure, in great significance to the community so far. There's been that. The Cultural Arts Center has been it has been impactful, but it has not been utilized very much because it opened right before COVID started. So, but they opened it for kids classes over the summer, and they were able to create some dynamite art and do sculpting, and I saw artwork hanging up, and they're starting to do showings of kind of like indie film type things in the theater. So a lot of local talent, even in the art gallery, we have a state-of-the-art art gallery that's a part of that. So local artists have been able to make installations that get hung up in a place that is really top-notch and high quality. So that's, I would say, had an impact. The Alita Hotel, which is the 8-story boutique hotel that I was working on had a tremendous impact for that area. It's predominantly tourist heavy in that area, but that portion of West River Street was very, very unattractive prior to us creating that.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, they just opened up the power plant, Plant Riverside district that's owned by a man named Richard Kessler here in Savannah. His project is directly across the street from the Alita Hotel, and both of those projects being opened together just creates like the perfect portal for entertainment for that whole area of Savannah. So that's another project that I think is impactful for the community. We've done work for designing shipping containers that are converted into housing for homeless people in partnership with the city of Savannah.
Wow.
I'd have to think of kind of and break it down, but that is a great question. And I just say that it really just depends on what lens you're looking at it through, because I think that that's the true definition of being an architect is you are a change agent. So everything that you touch and everything that you work on is in the pursuit of redesigning and changing something to be different than what it is now. So everything that we touch impacts somebody some kind of way.
Wow. Well, all I can say to that is just, continue to do the work that you're doing, because it's obvious each thing that you've accomplished and each project that you work on has a different kind of effect as far as your community goes. And I think what is important is that as long as it's a positive effect and that there's some positivity going on within Savannah itself, that's going to really make the community stronger. And I think that's going to make your work important. So I definitely applaud you for just everything that you've done so far.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And if I'm not mistaken, weren't you like a part of Savannah's 40 under 40?
Yeah, I've been a part of a couple of really cool groups. One when I was 24, 25, I think, maybe. It was a few years ago. The multicultural, at that point, it was called the Multicultural Chamber of Commerce in Savannah, had a 40 under 40 celebration, and I won in the top 5 as I believe like the word that they used was trailblazer. I won the Trailblazer Award. That was pretty cool. I was part of that. And then recently I was featured in Savannah Magazine's 30th anniversary magazine. And I was part of the New Guard 2020 class, which is basically a highlight of a lot of younger movers and shakers throughout Savannah. And of course it was COVID, so we didn't really get to meet everybody, but that was also a really cool experience. So yes, I've been acknowledged by important people, which is always nice and feels cool because I'm just doing me.
I'm just gonna add an applause effect to this once I finish editing, but y'all already know what it is. Y'all already know what time it is on that one. Like again, I can't celebrate this young lady enough. Y'all know I love my Black women, I love my Black Hantonian women, but when they go above and beyond the call,
we got some.
Yeah, y'all already know what time it is. So just a question in regards to that. What is there anything that you're doing, or what can we do so that we can get younger generations like Black men and Black women who are behind us, like interested in architecture? Because you don't hear too many Black architects out here in the world, or you don't really like hear too much about them unless for me, unless they've been to Hampton. So I want to be sure that at least this platform can be used so that way we can expand those horizons for somebody who might be listening to this who is still undecided.
Yeah. So your question is what can we do to get younger people involved and interested in something like architecture?
That is correct.
There are a couple different angles. I do a lot of community speaking and speeches to different schools, different organizations, fraternities, sororities, and just explain to people what I do. Sometimes at open house type events or just festival days at schools, I will bring a huge architectural model of one of the buildings that I've worked on, and that way kids and people can just ask questions like, hey, what's this big city block doing right here? And I say, oh, this is what I do architecture, and I can explain to them the opportunity at hand. I think that there are a lot of different ways that you can expose younger people to things that they may not be used to seeing. But I think the bigger thing is just getting people to open their eyes. Mm-hmm. And that's the really cool thing about architecture that I love about it, is that I can gain and learn and explore and analyze and be creative almost anywhere that I go, because there is something that is built, whether it's a room or a building or a street, or there are always things that you can look at and you can just ask the question, how do they do that? You know, you look at a window in the wall, how does that put together? How is that made? And I think that for inquisitive younger people that may not even know that those questions are questions that can be asked, and that there is actually a person that figures that out. I think that maybe like the work that I was doing with the Deep Center here in Savannah, which is a really awesome group of young people. I kind of met with them and we walked around Savannah and just talked about kind of how stuff works and different things about buildings that they're familiar with, and they had never noticed that building on the corner set back, or why it's set back the way that it's set back, and just having somebody explain to them, hey, this is the kind of stuff that you have to think about before you build a building, is also different. I think also encouraging young people to be a part of civic processes is really important. I don't know that in Georgia studies that kids are actually picking up and learning local and state level civics, but there is a lot that goes on a day-to-day process that really go over people's heads, because they just don't realize what zoning is, for example, and that, you know, that's how cities are and states are made, through zoning, so that things are legally allowed to be what they are. And I think that just suggesting having programs, or just suggesting that kids go and involve themselves in those public bodies and public meetings, just so they can understand the things that are impacting their world. You know, if I want a Dave and Buster's, where could it actually go? Because I want one down the street from my house, and a zoning hearing is coming up that allows for the land next to my house to be a Dave and Buster's. And I'm going to go show up and say I support it. Like, there are things like that that make a huge difference to the built environment, and people don't realize that they can connect to it. But, you know, I think that there's been a lot of young people that have been excited and ignited based off of the different issues, especially with Black Lives Matter and with COVID, and just with all this crazy stuff that's been happening. And they feel very unheard. I mean, unable to help anything or do anything about it, because they don't necessarily know how. Like, you know, can't just type on Facebook and hope that the world is going to fix because you don't like something about it. But I think giving those resources and those tools so that people learn, okay, I'm frustrated with how these things are happening, but the president of the United States actually has nothing to do with the problems that are right in front of me. The issue is that we need different bodies to decide different things in this area of my city, things like that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that there are a lot of different ways, and you just gotta make it look sexy.
Hey, I think that is one of the better answers to the question that I was hoping for. So
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
that definitely works for me. As you said, make it sexy.
Well, I'm glad that sentence out of everything that I said worked for what you needed.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The important thing is, of course, is just making sure that we recognize that our communities have to focus, in the community and not just look to someone else to come down and fix it for us. It's going to be on us to make those changes, especially if there are changes that we support that are going to support our community at large. A lot of people will look, up to, as you said, the president of the United States, and this is like, you've got two legs, you've got a voice, go out and use it. I think it's just important that we have that encouragement out there to know that your voice can be heard, but you got to speak up first. So
Absolutely.
so with that, just gonna get into a couple of questions here, because I see once again that you have gotten back into real estate. So I wanted to at least ask, how did that transition happen as far as getting back onto the real estate side?
Yeah. So I've had my real estate license for about 3 years now. And it took a long time for me to get my license because I'm not the best test taker in the world. But once I got it, I was very, very occupied with just doing everything else that I occupy my time with, whether it was being sociable or networking or working on different projects with people, or I stayed very busy, so I didn't do very much with it. And I was working for a real estate company that was an amazing real estate company, but they just were not the particular company that I think I need to work with at this phase of my career, because my background is in commercial architecture and they did not have commercial real estate under their umbrella of services. So I switched to Vantage Realty in April of this year, and it's been phenomenal. And they really encourage and support you and it's a great office. It's a great team of people. So that's where I am now. And I think that just kind of the stars are aligning, where I'm spending a lot less time going out and doing things because of COVID. And so it really gives me a lot more time to focus that energy on building my business.
Okay. So that brings me, I guess, to the next question on, especially with current market conditions, like what are some ways that you're actually like building your client list back up?
Yeah, so I'm a very sociable person. I don't know if you recall that, but I like to make friends in a lot of places. So I'm constantly telling people and reminding people that real estate is something that I do. And a lot of times people don't have a go-to realtor in mind. Sometimes when somebody's, the average person is looking up that they want to buy a $200,000 house, they go on Google, look something up, go to Zillow, see something on there. There's a list of agents on the side of the screen that say, contact me. And then you click a button, the next thing you know, one of the most important interactions and decisions monetarily that a person may ever make in their life besides going to school and having a kid, which is buying a house, they're working with a complete stranger on that process.
Mm-hmm.
And so just letting people know and in my social circle that that's what I'm doing has been extremely helpful. I also, because of the background that I have, I understand land development and commercial real estate and commercial buildings better. So I've befriended, if you want to call it that, investors. And I'd like to work with people that are not necessarily looking for their first home so that they can raise their family in it, because that typically needs a lot more tending to and a lot of personal investment. And I still have a full-time job, so I can't drop everything to show 20 houses to a young couple.
That's real.
But I'll partner with investors that tell me, hey, if at any point you see something that's worth $500,000 and you think up to $500,000 and you think that it's something worth getting into, share with me what you think it can be, and then I can move forward with buying it. And opportunities like that work out really well too.
Cool. Are there any challenges that you are currently facing as you said, working with real estate and maintaining your current job as is? Are there any like personal challenges that you're dealing with right now that you've had to overcome just to kind of balance everything out? I'm sorry, this I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought about it just now, like, wait a minute, you're juggling a lot. Like, you good? Are
Yeah.
you okay?
No, I am definitely okay, but I am incredibly busy. So it's really all about time management, and not just management, but time management, but expectation management. Everybody that I work with knows that real estate is not my full-time job. So, and I'll try to set times and schedule things around when I do have time, but I also try to make sure that all of my clients have the updates that they need and know that I am accessible if they really need something. I think that there are different phases of real estate in the real estate transaction. So when it comes time to push through and getting everything together for closing, it's very difficult to get all of those things done without the help of my team at the brokerage, because I can't show up for a home inspection at 2:00 in the afternoon when I have a day job. And I can't talk through with the loan officer about, there are just different things that are very difficult to be in two places at the same time. So I keep things very transparent in my workplace about what I have going on. And that is also very important to the success of me being able to do real estate right now, having my current job on board with my second job, if you could call it that. But yeah, I think that those are the biggest things that I have to consider in making sure that I don't lose a ball while juggling.
More power to you to be able to continue this journey that you're on, and again to continue balancing real estate as well as your current day job, as well as everything else that you have on top of that. I can't sing your praises enough right now. Like I'd be thinking about how busy I am, and then when I talk to people and certain people, especially you, I'm just like, yo, she stays busy. But you know what? That's and sometimes it can be a bad thing, because we always want to be sure that our mental health is okay, which is why I asked that question. But it's a good thing that in this case that you're staying busy. You're doing what you want to do, and I think that's important. So with that, I have a couple more questions here that I wanted to ask. Um, First and foremost, again, I know that you're still, I don't want to say new into the real estate thing, but you just got reactive. So I did at least want to ask, um, what are some things that you think? Let me rephrase that question. Is there anything that you want to address that about at least home ownership or about owning real estate that you think are some stereotypes or something false that might discourage somebody from buying, if you are knowledgeable on that kind of thing?
Um, so is there anything that I want to bring attention to for any stereotypes that people typically hear about homeownership?
Yes.
Okay. I think that there are a lot of stereotypes that make a lot of people want to gravitate towards renting.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand that, especially if you're consumed with other debts like student loans or whatever, why you would not want to jump into a whole lot more debt. However, I think that it's really important that as we unravel the story of generational wealth, especially within the Black community, that it's really important to think about every move that you make in your life being an investment. And if you aren't investing into your pockets, you're investing into someone else's. And so
Facts.
even if, now it doesn't always make sense for certain things, you know, if you're a traveling nurse and you are moving from place to place every 6 months to 9 months, and every city you go in, you are not going to want to buy a new home in every city you go in, and just so you can create generational wealth, unless you're just about that life. And I can't imagine why somebody would want to go through that unless they had a tremendous support system that could help manage that. But I think that if someone is making a decision of what they want to do, just calculating how much it would cost to get a mortgage is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then also saving up as much money as you can and having it for a rainy day, not for a rainy day, but it's for a day when you decide that you want to buy a property, having enough money saved so that you have the earnest money to put down on a property, and so that you have enough money to pay at least 10 to 20% of whatever your loan amount would be for your total home. I think just taking out the opportunity, even if you don't invest that money into a general savings account, just putting it in investment accounts so that that money can rapidly accumulate so that you can buy property sooner is a really good idea. So I think that just that stigma that, oh, it's okay, I just want to rent, I don't really want to, you know, it's building wealth. It's bigger than that. And it also creates great pride. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that in a market like this today, especially with it being a seller's market, it can be very hard for younger people to succeed in getting anything in these cash grab wars where people are coming to the table with $50,000 and $60,000 in cash, more than what the property was valued for, more than what the property was advertised to sell for.
Mm-hmm.
And there's almost no way that a 25-year-old just graduated from college that has done the work to save up, I don't know, 20 grand so that they can buy a $250,000 house, and the next thing you know, that house is just now being sold for 300. That's hard. 300 cash, and there's no question about it at closing, or when they're trying to accept a contract. That's what money talks. So that's very difficult. So just staying ready and being on the lookout, and then also having a dependable real estate agent that is very quick and that is very tenacious is really important, because you want to work with somebody that's going to make sure that you are the priority and that your offers are heard and that the follow through is very quick and prompt, so that you can get the best service that you're paying for.
Okay. And part of your answer actually answered another question that I had, which was actually the last question, was how do we encourage more Black people to invest in real estate property? So I think you've touched on that quite a bit with your previous answer, unless you wanted to add some more to that.
No, I think I hit that one.
Yeah, you definitely hit that one nail on the head. So with that, hey, I appreciate your answers to all these questions. Now I'm going to transition a little bit and just do a little rapid fire before we go, because I wanted to see, your opinions on these. So I'm gonna ask questions. They're not gonna be like too wild questions or anything like that. Just, something that, what your preference might be. So you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right. Cereal, grits, or oatmeal?
Grits.
Excellent
With
choice.
cheese.
Okay.
With cheese.
That actually, I was getting ready to ask sugar or salt and pepper and grits, but you already said with cheese. So
yeah, cheese.
Okay.
Cheese all day.
Yeah, I got you.
I like grits with my cheese.
Yeah. Fair enough. Pancakes, waffles, or French toast?
Waffles. I actually had these amazing basil pecan waffles in Atlanta. Never thought of that combination, but it was delectable.
The basil kind of like threw me off for a second there, like basil pecan. But you know what? I'm willing to try anything.
Like,
and honestly,
very herbal, very like it was really good. You should try it.
Hey, I'm a waffle person myself, so I will go ahead and take your word for that. Okay. Nickelodeon or Disney Channel?
Disney Channel.
Disney Channel or Cartoon Network?
Disney Channel.
Okay, I give you
I
that
was a big Disney Channel lover as a kid. Nickelodeon, I would have to say it would be a cross between Nickelodeon and Disney Channel, but as I became a teenager, I related a lot more to the Disney Channel shows. And then when I was a kid, it was definitely all Hey Arnold, all Rugrats, all SpongeBob, Rocket Power. I wasn't actually that big into Rocket Power, but I feel like it's different for guys, because if you were a guy of our age, you stayed on Cartoon Network at 6 p.m. to watch Dragon Ball Z. So,
well, yes. But that being said, early Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network played a big part of my life as a kid. And then as a preteen, I started getting more into Disney Channel, but then I started to stray away from Nickelodeon. So it was mainly between Disney Channel and Cartoon Network that I stayed on, because Nickelodeon, I could tell that corporate was taking over and they were getting too big. And now all these shows that I just wasn't feeling. So that's just me personally. All right. Gotta go to some music here. Drake or J. Cole?
J. Cole.
J. Cole or Kendrick?
Kendrick.
Kendrick or Tyler?
Kendrick.
Kendrick or Kanye?
Kendrick.
And this is why we're friends.
Now, that is not to say that those other rappers are not talented, right? But I just have a musical preference and personality preference behind the music that I listen to.
Hey, me and you on the same page. Okay. 90s R&B or early 2000s R&B?
90s R&B.
90s R&B or late 2000s R&B?
90s R&B.
Okay. Mary J. Blige or Erykah Badu?
Erykah Badu.
Bet. Jazz or blues?
Jazz.
Bet. Wine or liquor?
Wine. I don't drink, so
I got you.
kind of whatever. Whoever wants to drink it, whatever they're having.
I hear you. Outdoors or indoors?
Indoors.
Okay. Long walks on the beach or hikes?
Long walks on the beach.
Okay. Okay. I think that answers a lot of my rapid fire questions here. So with that, the last thing I'm just gonna ask are, how can people follow you?
How can people follow me? They can follow me at my real estate handle on Instagram is Real Estate Stone. One solid word, Real Estate Stone. And my company Instagram for the architecture firm that I work with is GM Shea Architects. So at Real Estate Stone and at GM Shea Architects.
All right, excellent. So for those of you who may be interested in real estate, or if you're interested in architect, or maybe you might be interested in both architecture and real estate, be sure that you follow those pages. I will definitely make sure that I post them in the description of this episode. Before we sign off, of course, as always, I have to close us out by saying be sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the Chaotic Culture Podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at the Chaotic Culture Podcast page. You can also follow us on Instagram at Chaotic Culture Pod, one word, or you can follow us on Twitter at chaotic_culture. You can follow me, Ked the Pro, that's K3D the Pro, on all social media. You can also follow my co-hosts who are not here at this time, Chanasa at _call me Nasa on all social media. And then you can follow Law on Instagram at L.JR_96 and on Twitter at Law96_. Please be sure, of course, that you continue to support us. You can support us through our Patreon. Once again, patreon.com/chaotic culture pod. You can go and support us on all 4 levels. That includes the chaotic subscriber, which is only $3, the culture protector, which is $5, culture embracer at $10, or you can become a champion of the culture at $20 a month. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can also hit me at chaoticculture1@gmail.com. That is where all of our booking is as well. And once again, I have to thank Meredith Stone for coming by to the Chaotic Culture Podcast and sharing her stone world with us. We definitely appreciate you, Meredith.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this episode. Meredith, just hang on for quite a bit before I actually log off of the Zoom here. But for everybody else, of course, as always, please make sure that you stay safe out here, continue to social distance, wear a mask, get vaccinated if possible, and think about your fellow neighbor. Also, as always, keep God first and the rest will follow. So with that, guys, thank you for joining us for another edition of the Chaotic Culture Podcast. Be blessed, be safe. God is love. Deuces.
Look, it's chaos in these streets, so let's talk about it, please. Let's hold some conversation. You see where I'm coming from. Yes, it's so amazing. Go ahead, get comfortable. You can grab a seat, take a load off your feet. Yeah, welcome to the table. We don't tell no lies over here. This ain't no fable. We just live our lives over here. We ain't no angels. We just shine our light over here. We got the power. We just showing love over here. Cause everybody needs some, yeah. And we don't need